The restaurant buzzed with the usual evening rush. The scent of sizzling steaks and freshly baked bread filled the air as customers chatted over their meals. It was the kind of place where regulars felt at home, and new visitors were greeted with warm smiles, most of the time. Among the waitstaff was Lisa, a young woman who had worked at the restaurant for nearly a year. She was quick on her feet, good at balancing trays, and always had a sarcastic remark ready for her coworkers. But she had a habit, a bad one. She judged people. Whether it was a couple on an awkward first date, a family with unruly kids, or someone dining alone, Lisa had an opinion about everyone. And if she thought she could get away with it, she would even make snide remarks under her breath. That night, as she wiped down a table near the entrance, the restaurant door swung open. A man walked in, broad-shouldered, heavy-set, and dressed in simple but clean clothes. His presence was quiet, yet something about him made a few heads turn. Maybe it was the confidence in his step, or the way he took in the restaurant like he knew it well. Lisa, however, barely glanced at him before muttering, "Great." Another one who's probably going to order half the menu. Her coworker, Sam, nudged her with a warning look. "Lisa, come on." But she just smirked. "What?" "I'm just saying." She approached the man with a forced smile, her notepad in hand. "Welcome. Table for one." The man nodded, his eyes scanning the restaurant before settling on a booth near the window. As Lisa led him to his seat, she noticed the way his gaze lingered on the staff, the kitchen, and even the little details, like the flowers on each table and the way the silverware was placed. It was almost like he was inspecting everything. As he sat down, Lisa handed him a menu. "Let me guess," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "You're going for the biggest meal we have." The man looked up at her, his expression unreadable. There was no anger, no irritation, just a calm, assessing gaze. "What do you recommend?" he asked, his voice deep but gentle. Lisa shrugged. "Depends on how hungry you are." She chuckled, glancing at his broad frame. "But I'm guessing pretty hungry." Sam, who was passing by, shot Lisa another disapproving look, but she ignored him. The man, however, didn't react the way she expected. Instead of getting upset or embarrassed, he simply smiled. "I'll take the house special." Lisa scribbled it down and walked away, shaking her head. "Some people," she muttered under her breath. As the night went on, Lisa barely paid him any more attention. She was busy juggling tables, cracking jokes with her regulars, and occasionally rolling her eyes at demanding customers. But every now and then, she noticed the man watching. Not in a creepy way, just observant, like he was taking in everything around him. Then, just as Lisa was about to drop off his check, something unexpected happened. The restaurant manager, a usually reserved and serious man, suddenly appeared from the back, his eyes widening the moment he spotted the man. "Sir, I didn't know you were coming tonight," he stammered. Lisa frowned, confused. She had never seen her boss act like this before. The manager rushed over, shaking the man's hand with a nervous smile. Lisa stood frozen, her stomach twisting with unease. Who exactly was this guy? And why was her manager treating him like royalty? Then the man finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "I wanted to see how things were running." Lisa's heart pounded. "Running?" And then, with a polite but knowing smile, the man finally revealed the truth. "This is my restaurant." Lisa felt the blood drain from her face. The woman hesitated, then took a breath. "I didn't know if I should come. But when I saw the interview, when I heard what you said about pain and loss, I had to." Keena's jaw tightened. He swallowed hard. The night had already taken an unexpected turn. But this was something he hadn't prepared for. "I thought you were gone," he finally said, his voice quieter than before. The woman's lips trembled. I thought I was too. The girl felt like she was intruding on a deeply personal moment, but at the same time, she couldn't look away. She had come here tonight to thank Keanu for saving her, but now she was witnessing something even bigger. A reunion, a moment that felt like it had been waiting to happen for years. Keanu exhaled slowly. Why now? The woman's gaze dropped for a second. Because I finally had the courage. Something in Kinu's face softened. He wasn't a man who held on to resentment, but he was someone who understood pain, who understood the weight of time and the things left unsaid. Then just as quickly as the tension had built, something shifted. Keanu nodded, not with anger or regret, but with acceptance. I'm glad you're here. The woman let out a shaky breath, relief washing over her face. The girl, still standing beside Keanu, felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had come here tonight believing she owed him something, that his words had saved her. But now, watching him in this moment, she realized something even bigger. Keanu wasn't just someone who helped others. He was someone who carried his own wounds too. And yet, he still chose kindness. He still chose to move forward. As the night settled, the energy of the red carpet changed. The moment that had started with her confession had turned into something much more profound. The cameras were still rolling, the world still watching, but somehow none of that mattered. Keanu turned back to the girl, his expression returning to the quiet warmth he always carried. Thank you, he said softly. She frowned slightly. For what? For reminding me why I do this, he said simply. The girl felt her throat tighten, but she smiled. No, thank you. And just like that, the night continued. But for the girl, for the woman, and even for Keanu himself, something had changed. A moment of truth. A moment of healing. A moment that would be remembered long after the cameras stopped flashing. And as Keanu walked away, the girl realized that sometimes the people we look up to are carrying just as much as we are. And yet they still keep going. Maybe, just maybe, that was the most powerful lesson of all. But then she continued, her voice cracking slightly. I watched a video of you. It was an interview. You were talking about loss, about pain, about how you kept going no matter what. She blinked rapidly, trying to keep the tears from spilling. You said something that night that stuck with me. You said, pain changes us, but it doesn't have to define us. Keanu exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. That night, those words kept me here, she admitted. I thought if someone like you, someone who's been through so much, could still be kind, still keep going, maybe I could too. For a long moment, Keanu didn't say anything. The emotion in his eyes was raw, something deeper than just sympathy. It was understanding. The girl took another shaky breath. I promised myself that if I ever got the chance, I'd tell you. So here I am. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the reporters, always eager for a new headline, seemed hesitant to break the silence. Keanu's gaze softened. He stepped forward, closing the small gap between them. And then, without a word, he did something unexpected. He pulled her into a hug. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. The girl froze, overwhelmed by the kindness in the gesture. For years, she had dreamed of this moment, of simply standing in front of him. But this was more than she ever could have imagined. When he finally pulled back, there was something unreadable in his expression, something deeper than gratitude. I'm glad you're here, he said simply. The girl let out a shaky laugh, wiping at her eyes. Me too. But just as the moment settled, just as the weight of her confession seemed to sink in, a sudden commotion broke out behind them. The crowd shifted, security tensed, and a voice called out, loud, urgent. Keanu turned his head, his body instinctively moving in front of the girl as his expression darkened. Something was happening, something that would change the night even more than her confession had. And this time, even Keanu wasn't sure how it would end. A sudden shift in the crowd sent a ripple of tension through the air. Security guards moved quickly, their earpieces buzzing with urgent messages. Someone was pushing forward, calling Keanu's name in a voice thick with emotion. The girl flinched as the energy around them changed. Keanu turned, instinctively placing a protective hand on the girl's shoulder. His eyes searched for the source of the commotion. The cameras were now wildly flashing, reporters scrambling to catch whatever was unfolding. The murmurs grew louder, filled with confusion and curiosity. Then from the sea of people, a woman emerged. She wasn't dressed like a fan or a reporter. Her presence was different. Her face held a mixture of hesitation and determination. Keena's expression shifted the moment he saw her. Recognition flickered across his face. His grip on the girl's shoulder loosened as his focus zeroed in on the woman. Keanu, the woman's voice wavered. "It's me." For a moment, silence fell between them. Keanu blinked, as if trying to process something buried deep in his memory. And then, just like that, the emotion hit him. It had been years. More years than he could count. But now, standing in front of him, was someone from his past. The girl standing beside him could feel the energy change. She had no idea who this woman was, but she could see the way Keanu's posture stiffened, the way his expression, always so calm and steady, wavered for just a second. The red carpet shimmered under the bright city lights, cameras flashing from every direction as celebrities made their way toward the grand event. Fans lined up behind barricades, their cheers echoing through the night. The air buzzed with excitement. Among the crowd stood a young girl, barely in her teens, her hands clenched tightly as she took deep breaths. Her eyes, wide with anticipation, were locked onto one person, the man she had been waiting to see for years, Keanu Reeves. The moment he stepped onto the red carpet, the crowd erupted. His presence was magnetic, his usual humble smile and composed demeanor making everyone fall silent in admiration. Dressed in his signature all-black suit, he walked at a steady pace, waving at fans, stopping for a few quick photos, and giving that signature nod of appreciation. But he had no idea that in just a few moments, everything was about to change. The girl's heart pounded against her ribs. This was her chance. She had rehearsed this moment 100 times in her head, but now, as security tightened their hold on the barriers, doubt crept in. What if they stopped her? What if she couldn't get close enough? No, she couldn't let fear hold her back. With one deep breath, she pushed forward, slipping past the distracted crowd. Her feet barely touched the ground as she sprinted toward him. Guests rippled through the onlookers, and a few people shouted in alarm. Security moved instantly, but Keanu's sharp eyes caught the motion. Just before they could intervene, Keanu took a step forward. And then, wait, his calm yet firm voice cut through the chaos. The guards hesitated. The girl stopped just inches from him, panting, her hands shaking. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall just yet. Keanu crouched slightly, meeting her at eye level. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The girl swallowed hard. This was it. This was her moment. "I need to tell you something," she whispered. The world seemed to pause. The flashing lights, the murmuring crowd, even the distant hum of the city, it all faded into the background. Keanu nodded, his eyes full of quiet concern. "Go ahead." She took a shaky breath. "You saved my life." A hush fell over the red carpet. Whispers spread like wildfire. Reporters turned their cameras fully toward the scene. Security stayed on high alert, but even they were frozen, waiting for what would happen next. Kinu's brows furrowed slightly, his expression softening. "What do you mean?" Her lips trembled as she looked into his eyes, those same kind, knowing eyes she had seen on the screen countless times. But this time, they were real. This time, they were right in front of her. And then, before she could finish her confession, something happened that made Kinu straighten up abruptly. His entire expression changed, the warmth in his eyes flickering into something unreadable. The event was about to take a turn no one saw coming. Kinu's expression shifted in an instant. His usually calm demeanor stiffened, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd, as if sensing something was off. The girl, still catching her breath, noticed the change in him. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on both of them. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, cameras zooming in, reporters whispering into their microphones, trying to make sense of the situation. The security team stood on high alert, waiting for Kinu's signal. But he didn't step back. He didn't walk away. Instead, he looked at the girl with quiet patience, as if he already knew that whatever she was about to say was more important than the flashing lights and the event itself. The girl's hands trembled at her sides. She had imagined this moment so many times, but now that she was here, standing in front of him, the words felt stuck in her throat. She had to say it. She had to let him know. She took a deep breath. "You saved my life," she repeated, her voice stronger this time. A flicker of emotion crossed Kinu's face, curiosity, concern, maybe even recognition, though he wasn't sure why. "How?" he asked gently. The girl looked down for a second, as if gathering the courage to tell her story. The world around them seemed to shrink, the noise of the red carpet fading into the background. "You probably don't remember," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. "But years ago, I was in a really bad place. My life was falling apart, and I didn't think I could handle it anymore." She paused, swallowing hard. "One night, I was ready to give up." Kinu's jaw tightened, his eyes never leaving her face. The weight of her words settled heavily between them. The crowd, the cameras, none of it mattered now.